Hey, deserving listeners, Ultimatum, let's watch.
Me, I think the emotional connection comes from like what I'm looking for. She makes me feel like I am her wife, like I'm there. Like
I love that.
I am always going to be her first priority. I'm not saying Ashley doesn't do that, but she needs to do more of that.
Yeah.
Which I don't think should be an issue.
Okay, I was wondering what Marita was referring to in an earlier episode when she was complaining about lack of meaning. She said empty in the relationship and lack of romance, because I think the Occam's razor for the definition of that word often is that they just mean like romantic gestures, I love yous and flowers and gifts and energy and pursuing and that kind of thing. But I wondered if, at the very least, a part of that meaning for Marita was connection and depth and intimacy, emotional and physical maybe. And Marita is communicating that with Brittany, she feels more of that. But I think it's deceptive because in the beginning, especially when I think they don't have to work very much, or maybe they do. Actually, some of them are going to work. At the very least, they're in the beginning of a relationship. They don't resent each other yet. They haven't fallen into a routine. There's still some novelty there. The cameras are there. So to contrast and compare the vibe you're getting from Brittany as opposed to Ashley, I don't think is exactly analogous and fair. But regardless, Marita is fine to notice and want more of that. And it sounds like this is clarifying. I keep coming back to that word clarifying because I think watching this show, it can be confusing as to what outcome the 12 women are hoping for, right? And I keep coming back to that word. And I'm sure all of them have different sorts of motivations, but I would hope, and there's a lot of evidence that a lot of them, regardless of they're the ultimatum giver or receiver, are looking for clarification. Do I want to marry this person, or should we stay the same as we are now, where we're kind of in limbo about that? Give it more time, or should we break up, or should I be with this other person, or should I just be? I don't know. So I think that for Marita, she's getting a bit of that clarification, that contrast. Oh, that feels nice to have that. In fact, I wonder if it's even more nuanced than that in terms of what we saw. That Brittany really spent time to listen and notice Marita's over-pleasing ways, right? Like, it's one thing to pay attention to your partner. It's another thing to pay attention to things that aren't being explicitly communicated, right? In a caring way. Brittany was noticing something that Marita wasn't even bringing up. Marita wasn't saying, I have a problem with acting all happy when I'm not. Brittany just noticed that, right? Was attuned to that, brought it up in a nice way, in a caring way. Brittany didn't have to. In fact, it might be a bit of a risk or a pain in the ass to bring that up if you're in Brittany's shoes, right? It's like you're not going to get yelled at if you don't bring it up, but because you care and because you notice, you do. It's on your mind. It's a thorn in your side now. It's like, oh, I see the thorns in their side, and now I have a thorn because of that. And not only do I want to do this out of care for the person, but it pains me to see someone that I care about going through pain. So I'm gonna bring it up. Maybe they don't want me to, but this is like pain. It hurts me to watch this, especially if you're the one that they are trying to please, right? That's the implication there, that Marita is editing her expression because she doesn't want to bother someone else, and by implication, the other person would be bothered by your authentic feelings, and that is kind of an accusation. I mean, Marita's not doing that really, but it is. I've felt that before. I have felt that sort of hurt that someone wouldn't share, assuming that I would not react well, and I am a professional listener. I'm not always great, but I pride myself in my ability to listen and put myself aside, especially if it's a fairly easy task, like a situation like that. So there can be that motivation. Anyway, so Marita's clarifying that, which is good.
Yeah.
How are you guys? Oh my gosh, how's your life? How's it going?
It was really, really hard the first week.
AJ wasn't exactly feeling the same things I was, right? Like,
How so?
I was not speaking to my ex, Mel, but you guys were talking.
All right, so to catch you up, the 6 ultimatum givers are getting together for cocktails and talking, and then the 6 ultimatum receivers are getting together to talk. And we are checking in with Marie, and Marie is saying that the first week was tough. And I think from the edit for Marie, it looked like it was already kind of tough before AJ disclosed to Marie that AJ and Brittany had met up a couple times without informing Marie, you know? And from later statements from Marie and later vibe between AJ and Marie, it kind of looks like either they didn't really hit it off as soon as they started to actually try being married and living in the same place. You know, it's one thing to go on dates and talk, it's another thing to live together. So they either didn't hit it off, and or neither one of them was that interested in actually pursuing an actual romantic relationship, right? And or both of them were standing at the edge of the pool waiting for the other person to jump in, and or AJ was resisting or was always fake, or I don't know. It's hard to tell what's going on. But they weren't hitting it off. And then AJ discloses to Marie that AJ and Brittany had met up. And the way that AJ disclosed it, in contrast to the way Brittany disclosed it, was a lot different. The way AJ talked about it, I assumed it was AJ saying that she got together with Brittany and they've essentially been cheating on Marie, right? That's the way AJ disclosed it. Maybe they had a longer conversation, but it seemed way more intense. The way Brittany talked about it, she's just like, we met up a couple times just to kind of talk, and it felt better to do that. Because from Brittany's description, it sounded like they were just like, wait, what are we doing here, and what's the plan? We haven't had, now that we've chosen and we've heard at the choice ceremony thing, you talking about how you're connecting. Are you really connecting? Like that's what I think happened. And I think Brittany and AJ, given the way each of them have acted in their respective trial marriages, I think they both told each other, no, we're not actually going to do this, really, And I think every couple, every individual is different along those lines. I think as viewers, we might assume that everyone is up for really trying the trial marriage, but I'm remembering previous seasons, it seemed like there was evidence, and they don't want to show that to us, even if they do talk about that in front of the camera, because that would really make the show look kind of pointless, right? And maybe it kind of is for some, but clearly for some couples, like with Dana and Mel, they do take the trial marriage seriously, right? And maybe it's just a chemistry thing, but I think what happened was Brittany and AJ were, because AJ, I don't think was super enthusiastic about being on the show to begin with. I think AJ was having fun in the dating thing. She was even saying, I'm like a kid in a candy store or something. She's like, this is fun. But I don't think she was seriously looking for a partner. Whereas people like Pilar and Dana and Mel, they all seem to be like, I'm seriously going to see if there's another person here that I might connect with better, or at least have an experience like I think Pilar was hoping for. Whereas I think for AJ and Brittany, I think they just, particularly because Brittany was having a really hard time, which is fine. She's the one that signed up, I think, for the show, and yet I think it was her. Anyway, so I think they had that conversation. And for Brittany, she's just like, well, no harm, no foul. It's not. She, in the one-on-one interview, indicated that she didn't think Marita knew that Brittany had met up with AJ. But I think Brittany's like, it's all innocent. It's all fine. I don't. Even though it's a little on the ethical line. So anyway, right now, Marie and Brittany were the ultimatum givers, so they're together right now, and Marie is just like indirectly accusing Brittany of playing a part in ruining the first week because Brittany and AJ got together. So let's see how this goes.
And that was really hard. It was a hard pill to swallow.
AJ made a commitment to you, and you were robbed of that.
And AJ? She wasn't supportive, even though you guys were living two different, like, struggles, I guess?
How can you be supportive if we're living two different struggles? It was a very lonely road at first. I had to find myself very quickly.
Yeah, I think it's easy, and I think the edit's trying to make it look this way, that the struggles that Marie was going through were completely AJ's fault because AJ's a jerk face. And that could be, and maybe that's a factor. But I think more importantly, and I don't think the show really wants to emphasize this part of it in the edit, that for Marie, I think the primary struggle was that she was having to watch Mel connect with someone else even before they split off into their different rooms, right? So I think Marie was struggling because she's sitting there, even if AJ was there or not there, Marie's just like, Mel doesn't want to marry me, has been resisting me for a long time. Marie and Mel have been together for 4 years, so they're one of the couples on this show that have been together for a legit amount of time. And Marie is already feeling rejected just coming into the whole thing, right? And then is hoping that clarification for both of them will happen on the show. And then the reality of it hits in that Mel is now split off with Dana. And, Mel probably got a vibe from Dana about, the personality of Dana. And you could see Marie thinking, I imagine Mel and Dana might actually get along or something. And also, I think for Marie, and I think for a lot of them, it's this way, the change of pace, just living in a different place. They don't have all their distractions that they normally would have. I think the fact that their partner isn't really there with them all the time, it's like a vacation from your life to think. And I think for Marie, and she even talked along these lines, she's just like, I've just been having to grow. all these things are hitting me right now, And I think a lot of that didn't have anything to do with AJ. And so, now maybe AJ turns out to be a complete jerk face moving forward, and everyone's just like, no, Kirk, you don't understand. AJ's a jerk face, and I just call it as I see it. So, and I can only process what I've seen so far. But anyway, and I have a bias. We all do. Anyway, so for Marie, I think she legit was having some turmoil internally because of all that reflection and just all that life that's sort of coming at her, and all the implications, with the food truck and all that, And so for Marie, I think the AJ Brittany thing really just typified how lonely she felt, that she was already feeling lonely, even if AJ was being nice,
But that's the whole point. We're supposed to truly figure out if this is somebody that we want to be with, and do they really want to be with us back?
Yeah.
I think we're all in agreement on that for sure. That's the whole point of this process. It's we're all here because we issued an ultimatum.
And we all agreed to this. No one forced any of you guys to do this.
Okay, so the indirect communication is that Marie is indicating the loneliness and the pain, and I think Dana either feels indirectly accused or guilty because Dana knows how much Dana and Mel are connecting and feels bad, and so is emphasizing, look, we're all the ultimatum givers. I think meaning we're the primary drivers of being on the show, and we made this choice and we knew what we were signing up for. So if you're feeling bad, yeah, but no one's to blame for, it's if you feel lonely because you're not close to Mel or Mel's connecting with someone else, that's the whole point of this thing, so don't get angry at me. I'm putting words in Dana's mouth, but I think there's a legit point there, and it would make human sense if Dana felt a little guilty on some level, but wait, it's not my fault, right? But I also want to say, and I've been thinking this, I was on the treadmill thinking about this today, that we don't know, and the show would never want to show us, and the cast members might not even want to show the camera, where they are on the spectrum of how much they want to participate in the actual format of the show, which is kind of weird to think about. It's why would you come on the show? I think you have the Danas and the Mels and the Pilars. I'm trying to think if we have any others here. AJ and Marie. I don't know how much either one of them were that willing to actually give the trial marriage a shot, meaning that at the very least there would be cuddling and kissing and intimacy and smiling at each other in bed and stuff, and maybe more advanced, so to speak, sexual stuff, but really just being a couple, right? And getting into it, right? So AJ doesn't seem, for whatever reason, either going into it or because of lack of chemistry with Marie, doesn't seem to be putting any effort into that sort of thing. Marie also, but maybe reactive to AJ, who knows? Pilar, from all the things that we saw with Kyle, seemed very much from the start, let's do this thing. Kyle, unsure. Kyle's more reserved. So even though Kyle might want to do things, so I think Kyle was either on the fence, because if Kyle was not on the fence, I think Kyle would have told Pilar off camera, I don't want to make out. Because I think some of them are saying that. So Bridget and Ashley, they didn't show much of them, so I can't really know. It looked like neither one of them was that interested in being romantic. Haley and Megan, that kind of grew actually over time, and I think that is growing toward the end here. Dana and Mel, definitely, right? They're just like, yeah, let's do this. Marita and Brittany, also, I think okay with intimacy and friendship, but emotional intimacy, but not actually being a couple. So is that a result of lack of chemistry? Is that just things take more time than 3 weeks? Or do they go into the trial, even just coming on the show to begin with, knowing that they are just looking for clarification on the show because the show provides a lot of venues for that. And it just also has this kind of odd thing where you do this trial marriage, or the ultimatum givers are more thinking, my partner, I want them to experience someone else and realize that we have something. So, but I'm not interested in being with someone else because obviously I want to marry this person. Why do I want to be with another person? That's a question that we have to ask as we're watching, right? Because there can be problems that we are witnessing, and if we assume that they were all 100% into the trial marriage process, it can color the way that we see things. Whereas if very few of them were, then it really changes the way that we would interpret what's happening. Like with AJ and Marie, if both of them were like, no, I'll be friendly, but there's not going to be any hanky-panky. There's not going to be any emotional intimacy. I'm not going to be with AJ. Marie's thinking this. This is just a fun little thing. And then what I'm really looking for is for Mel to wake up and marry me, or to just figure it out, either pull the plug or whatever. All right, well, I want to give a shout out to the YouTube members who have been YouTube members the longest. We have Lauren, who has been a YouTube member for 25 months. So she now has the 2 corn. Wait, is this the first time I've seen this? So there are these little icons that you get that will show how long you've been a member. And I spent some time working with a designer on it. And so once you're past the 24-month part, you get the 2 corn. So Lauren and Rosie and good old Fema and good old Studirk and Allison and Brittany, thank you so much for signing up 25 months ago, I think, when I started this YouTube membership program, and staying a member this whole time. It's just really great. It's really the only way I can do any of this stuff is if you pay my bills so I don't have to work at the university or take on more clients. So thank you, and take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.